Mr. Raymond Wong, do you want to ask a question at a time, or are you going to ask 2 questions in one go? What do you mean? Related questions, in other words, in one go. Okay, fine. I have to go back to part 3. There are still some questions on elderly housing, the HCSC and the C1P units. Yes, please. 3.20 to 3.22. HSC Type 1 flats, these are not popular. In 2006, you started converting them. For some HOS flats, they've been frozen. They were not offered for letting, and then they were converted to ordinary units. So for the HSC flats, do you have a long-term policy? You just say that these units are not popular, so you take them back and you convert them. But is there a long-term policy?
To revert them back into public housing units. But I must say that it's also part of the policy that we don't intend to force people to move out. We want to encourage them to do so because in some cases they have been living there for quite a while. The problem with it is, of course, it means that maybe only one person is living in an HSC which would normally hold 3 or 4. So we do want to encourage them to move, but that policy is encouragement, not forcing.
Well defined.
Encouragement, fine, but what's the response? Because the unit itself is rather spacious, right? So you won't force them to move out, but you can encourage them.
It's working slowly, if I'm being honest.
As you understand, it's not just a question about policy. There are people involved. There are some elderly people. They wouldn't move, however hard you try to convince them. This happens in a lot of the old districts, actually. Please continue. Another question is on the well-off tenancies policies. Ken asked a lot of questions. Mine is rather straightforward. Which paragraph? 3.27. Under the subsidy housing policy, if people stay in PRH units for 10 years or more, they will have to declare household income biannually. Do they have to provide documentary proof? Ms. Liu? Yes, the first time around they have to provide proof, document. As for but then for some households paying double rent, or there are some households because of errors in inputting data, some have been excluded. But can you avoid such human errors? Ms. Liu, do you have any measures that could avoid the human errors? Whereas audit is useful in helping us identify this loophole. And now we've learned about this, that there's some colleagues may not be able to follow up on the cases, so we've issued a guideline. That is for the when the declaration cycle starts, we ask colleagues to first check the system about these these units, whether all the information is updated first before they start the cycle. Because once the information is updated, then the information coming from the system will be accurate. So starting from next declaration cycle, we've now issued a guideline. All colleagues must first update all the information. This guideline, is there some sort of review mechanism? Yes, the housing manager and the deputy housing manager will do spot checks at the estate level. Yes, we will show you how the procedure works. Can I ask this? It's only because audit found out that you knew. So you don't have a system within the housing authority is a huge organization, so is the housing department. So you don't have a mechanism to review whether there are any loopholes in your own systems. Is that because other departments may do internal audit?
Audit teams that work within the system, in addition to the external audit that we get from the Director of
It's
Audit.
not that,
and they have looked at this issue in the past, and when they've looked at it, we've further refined our process. But it has to be an ongoing, because, as you know, staff change and staff become unfamiliar.
Your internal audit have highlighted the problem, but you took no notice, only took notice when the auditor highlighted that.
No, I can't agree to that. We did actually take
No,
action,
I'm asking a question. I'm not making a statement.
We have had this looked at by our own internal audit. They have identified some issues which we've acted upon. But frankly, the issue is that you have staff changing. You don't have the same staff there all the time. So there will always be issues that we need to refine our policy.
唔好意思啊，若問你繼續問下。
OK，嗱咁就係。
Sorry, Mr. Raymond Wong, please continue. 3.27 to 3.38, Table 20. 188,877, 26%. Now, these households have an income of $20,000 or more. That is the $18,310. That's the median wage for a three-person family on the waiting list. And then there are 1,175 households with income of $80,000 or more. That means the current mechanism is not able to induce PRH tenants to vacate their flats. Now, yes, you have consulted the steering committee on long-term housing strategy, and our subcommittees also talk about it. Are there other measures to deal with well-off tenants, Secretary? Now, in this council, when we carrying out the long-term housing strategy consultation, we've heard views. There's various views expressed. One, for well-off tenants to vacate their units, we have to look at two factors. One is the asset aggregate. The other is the income level. Asset aggregate is 84% of the waiting list limit, and if they reach that limit, should they be asked to move? That's one suggestion made. And another view is that we shouldn't wait 10 years. We should do the review sooner. Of course, we haven't come to any decision yet. And there's a third suggestion, as also mentioned in the audit report. That is, we can offer them HOS flats, so they will vacate their PRH flats. But actually, as I mentioned, all PRH unit tenants, whether they are well-off tenants or not, could use the green form to buy HOS flats. So we see what more room there is for us to do more. Under-occupied households, I have a few questions, but let me pick just one or two. 3.46. Figure 4. Page 69 in the English version. Number and percentage of Yo households. 2007, 35,500, and then by 2013 it's gone up to 54,555 cases, an increase of 54%. But in 1992, when you set the Yo standard, since it seems that you have not dealt with the Yo cases for the past decade, that's my feeling anyway. Well, of course, you've given explanation on Yo households before. But my question is, what are the biggest obstacles in enforcing the Yo policy? Mr. Liu? For the usual Yo cases, Figure 4, yes, we agree there is a general upward trend. In June, we submitted a review paper to the Subsidized Housing Committee of the Housing Authority. We did see this trend. Its main reason is because there are more new cases coming on stream. They come on stream quicker than we can handle the existing cases. So we can only handle 24,000 cases, but there are more cases coming on stream. And in the past few years, In 2006 to 7, there was another audit report. In the light of those recommendations, we do realize that there is a limited supply of small units. So in 2007, when we introduced the most serious UO policy, now we call it the prioritized UO policy, the PUO. And so since 2007, we have been more focused. We are looking at those with the most living space without elderly and persons with disabilities. So those are our priority cases. And as I mentioned, in the past few years, there were a total of 7,300 cases with out of 5,600 cases. By June this year, there are just 1,765 cases remaining. So we will still pursue this target. We will try to first deal with households taking up more than 30 square meters of space. Now, of course, you explain which cases you could deal with, which cases you don't, but the figures still show up problem. Table 22, 3.49 to 3.50, page just 71 and 2 in the English version. Table 23, page 71. Let's look at these figures. Table 23, for the majority one-person UO household, they're taking up flats for 2 to 3 people. So there are many UO flats that we could make good use of, because now there's the longest waiting list for 2 to 3 person households. So you have to find a way to address this. Now you have many UO households taking up 2 to 3 person units. Now, last time, at the last public hearing, the Secretary said, no, it's not 50,000 cases. Actually, we know many of these cases involve either the elderly or PWDs. But now you have seen these figures, because there are also the majority of one-person UO households actually occupying flats intended 3 to 7 persons, and so we have to see what we do. You know, we know there's a long waiting time for 2 to 3 person households or 4 to 5 person households. And of course now people not having children anymore, so maybe the household size will shrink eventually.
Secretary, we fully agree with what Mr. Wong said. Indeed, there are a lot of people on the waiting list. And for those who have been waiting for a long time, one of the reasons is that we don't have enough larger flats. And for UO unoccupied households, they usually occupy larger flats. Prioritized ones are those with no PWDs and no elderly people. For elderly people, if they are above 70 years old, they have been excluded. For those between 60 and 69, for those UO households, they are not prioritized. They will be dealt with in the next review, 2016. And for those who are prioritized UO households, we give them incentives to move out. Say, for example, free transfer offers in the same estate, same district, and if possible, new units and domestic removal allowance. These are incentives. If they turn down free of our transfer offers, we will recover the unit. But when it comes to individual cases, there are many reasons why a household refuses to move. Mr. Liu. In this regard, I'd like to refer to figure 4, and I would like to draw members' attention to paragraph 3.61. 3.61 on page 80 in the English version. In paragraph 3.61, well, 54,555 UO cases. In June this year, with the new policy, we have excluded cases involving elderly age 70 or above or disabled members. So altogether, 26,300 households have been excluded. Almost half of it, yes. So the number of UO cases amount to 28,300. And out of these 28,300, for the general UO cases, those are 60 and 70, between 60 and 70 years old, we don't have resources to deal with them in a year or two. There are about 13,000 such cases. So for those under 60 UO cases, there are about 15,300. And I have already explained in paragraph 3.61, 7,581 of them are prioritized UO cases. If we exclude those above 60 and PWDs, the number of cases we have to deal with amount to 15,300. 7,500 of them are prioritized cases. So, how many cases do you have to deal with at this stage? Can you expedite the process? I agree. We will identify suitable resources to deal with such cases. There are so many outstanding cases. Well, then you can tell a waiting list that we have this number of outstanding cases and the progress is slow. You have to disseminate such information because those on the waiting list do not know about this. There are about 10,000 units. You may expedite the process or deploy more manpower and resources to speed up the process. Then the waiting time will be shortened, and those who are on the waiting list will see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to talk about 3.56 and 3.57, these two paragraphs. Case 7. I'd like to hear more about this. Well, they can only get the household to move out upon the 6th offer. Is it the case that at the beginning the initial offers were turned down and that's why the case were delayed? Since you have already in mind to give them offers to get them out of the unit, then you can deploy certain strategies to get them out of the case. Mr. Liu, this is a special case. We make 6 offers. At the first 4 offers, the household explained to us that the reasons why the offered flats are not did not meet their needs, and we accept their explanation. If there is a valid reason proffered, and it's not because they are picky, say for example, I suffer from asthma, I suffer from asthma, and it's a low-level flat, they would rather wait for a different offer. In the end, we give them 5th offer. When we gave them the 4th offer, we retrieved the file to look into it. The estate officer has put in a lot of effort, telling them that we have to recover the flat and we will give them notice to quit. And this is the 4th offer, and you'll have to either take it or leave it. And it's only then the household was aware that we are there for real, because we would issue a notice to quit. It was only then that they told us that we should exercise discretion by offering a 5th offer. So, in accordance with the mechanism, the case was referred to the general manager, who looked at it and found that at the first 4 offers, they did not understand our explanation. I'm not going to so far as to say that they are stubborn. But when we say that there will be notice to quit issued, and they gave us a specific request, and we made the 5th offer. If we're so rigid as to stick to the policy by giving them only 4 offers, and then we will issue a notice to quit, well, the downside is that they can appeal and they can give us a lot of reasons. In the end, it will be a long way before we can successfully recover the unit. Whereas were asked to exercise discretion by making a fifth offer, and they were inclined to take the fifth offer. That's why we adopted this approach to resolve the case. Please let him answer first. We have adopted a humane approach wherever possible. Well, of course, it's not for the it's not for the manager or the deputy manager in the estate office to give a fifth offer. The case will have to be referred to the general manager before discretion is exercised. Over the years, we have dealt with a lot of cases, and when it comes to the number of complaints and the notices to quit are issued, the number remained small. We have come up to a mutually acceptable solution after detailed and lengthy discussion. Well, sometimes you're so rigid as to sticking to the policy. On the other times, you are so humane that you will reason with them and at the same time give them a deadline. So when are you going to decide which is to adopt? They will have to undergo training so that they can be as articulated as you. So do you give them training, Mr. Prescott, to train your staff, to train the skills in the negotiation? Yes, I agree this is a special case, but you are really patient. Is it a question directed at Mr. Prescott? So when it comes to training, well, they are either like a machine or Mr. Prescott, Mr. Wong. Perhaps you can ask Mr. Wong to help you train your staff.
Okay.
Train our staff, and not just in how we handle cases from a bureaucratic point of view, but also how to deal with things like dispute resolution, how to take down pressure when you're confronted with people. They have to have a whole skill set because they are very much frontline staff. And that's why we've got to have the ability to have rules that are clear, that people can understand, so we can explain things to them. But at the same time, the discretion is not at the frontline staff level, as Mr. Liu has explained. They must escalate to be able to get approval to give that extra offer or what have you.
Okay.
We need a proper system, and that is in place.
Thank you. 毓民繼續問第二個問題。
嗱，即係個問題。
Mr. Wong? Yes, indeed, this is a special case, but it gives us some additional information. What about 4.4 to 4.6? These three paragraphs. So we agree with the recommendation of the audit that at the time of making the application, yes, there may be exemptions with the furnishing of supporting documents. But when it comes to investment and deposits, if there are exemptions, it may confuse the applicant. As the audit said that the justification for the exemption proffered in paragraph 4.5 was inadequate. Investments and deposits are the most common types of assets held. So at the stage of application, exemptions should not be given. Secretary. Perhaps if you have similar questions, ask them first before you get an answer. And the request for supporting document will help the applicants understand whether he is eligible, and this will reduce the number of ineligible applicants on the waiting list. And on the other hand, the housing department will get a better picture of demand for PRH units. And this will reduce the administrative work of the HD. And on top of that, applicants will get a better understanding, and they can decide whether to make an application if they know full well that they are ineligible. And these are this is what is said by the audit, HD.
The issue here really is about at what point should we process in detailed investigations. As another member said earlier, investments can change very rapidly at any point in time. So if you require that information early, if you do the vetting, by the time they're actually going to be allocated a flat 3 years later, let's say, then the information may have changed. So we believe, while it may be useful to have the additional information up front, actual detailed vetting can really only take place at the point of where they're coming up for the allocation of the unit. So that's the logic of this. We don't want to overplay the amount of information that we gather until we actually need it. So that's the basic explanation.
何太係咪有跟進？
As the director said, the most important task at the early stage is whether to allow prospective applicants to be included on the waiting list. Apart from proof of identity and details like asset held, we need a declaration from the prospective applicant. When it comes to bank accounts and assets, we will ask them to furnish information such as bank balance, and they will have to declare the truth. On the declaration form, it is clearly stated the legal liability of making a true declaration. And given that we don't ask them to give us bank statements or insurance policies, once they are on the waiting list, we will follow up on the case and require the applicant to notify us where there are changes and furnish us with supplementary information. And in the process, we have the central investigation or vetting team to select random cases for detailed vet checking. So the current mechanism is sufficient. Of course, there can be improvement. Say, for example, if the applicant can furnish us bank information, it will be beneficial to us. Mr. Wang? About false declarations, I have still a lot of questions, but I don't want to take up time of other members. I will let them take their turn first. If you have a specific questions, then you can give the questions in written form. If they can't answer you now, they can give you written response. Kenneth, I have 6 questions, so short questions and short answers, hopefully. Please refer to Table 17, still about vacant flats. On the right-hand corner, you see 470 flats are not included in the EFAS, Express Flat Allocation Scheme. If it's answered, I apologize and I withdraw the question. Can you give me reasons why there are so many flats not included in the EFAS? It was answered. That doesn't matter. Well, you can give the answer again. Yes. Mrs. Hall? Yes. A quick answer. Out of the 98 flats, most of them are reserved for special purpose. Say, for example, for settlement in redevelopment projects. There are some that will be used for HOS flats. Say, for example, in some estate in Tai O, they have been vacant for quite some time. They will be converted into HOS flats. Second question. Also the same table, Table 17, number of vacant flats. I see that for some flats, they've been left vacant for 2 years, 206, 5 years and less than 10, 30, 10 years or more, 46. Paragraph 3.9. It says that these flats are flats with adverse environmental indicator. You said that they may not be popular even if you pull them under the EFAS exercise. and applicants may not take them up. You have listed up some adverse environmental indicators such as loan shark, murder, suicide cases of flats in remote areas. We're only talking about 200 flats or so. Are there any measures from the department to make these flats more favorable, not just put them under the EFAS? We may offer them a flat, but they may not like it. Mr. Prescott?
Mr. Chairman, in fact, this is something that we regularly review within the department, because I find it personally very difficult to understand just because someone has passed away in a particular flat why it should be so negative. But I'm assured that there is a sensitivity in the local community about this sort of situation. So what we're trying to do is, for a start, we need to tell people, because we had an occasion in the past where a so-called adverse environment flat was not known to the person who moved in. The neighbour told him, and he instantly said, "I'm out of here. You need to rehouse me." So first we need to tell people so that they go in knowingly. Secondly, we need to also make them available with additional offers. So if people are given an offer with an adverse flat, frankly, they may turn it down. We have to give them an additional offer. So we do try to manage the estate so that even the adverse environment flats are acceptable for people. And some people don't have that sensitivity. For example, some of our South Asian tenants don't have that sort of all-encompassing sensitivity. So we're aware of this, and we do try to take that into account. Do you want to add something?
Mr. Liu, say for example, loan sharks or flats that have been splashed with red paint. After some time, after the debt collectors know that the tenants have moved out, such threats may dissipate. We will keep the gate, say for example at the entrance, to not let strangers in, and this will alleviate the pressure of new tenants. Kenneth. Another question about vacant flats. 3.20 and 3.21. Well, some of the flats will have to go through conversion, and that's why they are not lettable. 3.20 and 3.21. You have given some descriptions about different conversions. Well, first, they are HSCs and they're not popular, and then they are converted into 1P flats, and afterwards you realize that there are some inconvenience, and then they are converted into ordinary PRH flats. Prior to the conversion, did you conduct any assessment as to whether prospective tenants will accept your design and the change? Well, you have made a mistake twice before you decide to turn them into normal PRH flats. If the flats are of a design that is totally unpopular, then why would you do it in the first place?
I think it's important to understand why they were introduced in the first place. We had a large number of elderly applicants who were not getting into public housing. So we felt that at the time, in the 80s, we needed to provide additional units. So converting, say, a two-bedroom unit into a 3 or 4 person, individual person, with a shared living area, shared toilets and kitchen facilities, was a way to respond very quickly to the circumstances at the time. So it wasn't an incorrect decision. But over time, as we've built more singleton units, as we've built more 1P, 2P units, we have had alternatives. We also developed more specifically designed housing for senior citizens units, HS2, HS3, where they didn't have to share toilets, for example. So we have refined them. But as we've got those, clearly the earliest designs were no longer acceptable in the modern standards, and that's why we're gradually converting them. But as I explained earlier, we're not forcing people out, we're converting them as they come available.
Kenneth.
Kenneth, so before your design was finalized,
will you conduct any survey? Will you find out if it's acceptable by tenants? Do you have any show flats, etc.? Kenneth. Well, I'm not trying to explain on their behalf, but the question is, there is a time frame for design. Once you design the flat, at that time, the design was preferable. But when you come up with newer designs, then the existing tenants might no longer be happy with the previous designs. All right, I accept your explanation. I'll come to question 4. So for the subsidized tenants, they have the rights. They do have the rights to have preferences. So another question on your households. Page 57. It's just a general question. How much resources have been used in identifying your households? A question for the administration. By what means are the your households identified? Do you have a dedicated team that pays home visits, or is it based on a declaration system by tenants? Mr. Liu? We have a computer system which contains the information of each household. So we can find the living area for each household. But whether there is an additional member in a household, you need them to report to you before you can make the changes in the computer system. What about those who passed away, those who have left the country? Where does the information come from, Sergio? At the time of application and intake, when the tenancy agreement was signed, they would tell us the number of persons in the household. All the information will be input into the computer system. For example, when the son gets married, there might be an additional member, and the record will be updated. If a household member passes away, the household might not inform us themselves, but we do have information from the immigration department. It's reported to us on a regular basis, and we also have home visits once every 2 years, so that officers will be made known of the situation of the household. Home visits. Is it done on a random basis, or will it be done to every household? What I'm trying to say is, this figure of your households might not reflect the real situation. It's just based on the information you have in your computer system. The number of your households might not be as few as some 50,000 in table 24. Am I correct in saying that? Mr. Liu. Chairman, home visits. It's 100%. It's done once every 2 years. So we have 700,000 PRH households. That means we conduct 360,000 households per year. It's a 2-year exercise for 700,000 households. We get hold of the circumstances of the household. We can't say that we can get 100% accuracy, but at least it reflects a true picture. Apart from any additional reduction of household members, what other purpose does the home visit serve? Mr. Liu. Yes. Now, first of all, we look at the situation, whether there's somebody occupying the flat illegally, whether there's any abuse of flats, whether the flat is used as, for example, a hair salon or a store. And during the home visit, we'll also inspect and talk to the tenant. For elderly singletons, we will recommend social services, for example, paying home visits to this elderly singleton, if the services are known to him. And our staff will explain to the tenant that this service is available. So we also look at whether there is any alteration in the flat which is against our standard. So by conducting home visits, we forge a closer tie with our tenants. At the same time, we also ensure building safety. Maybe concrete spalling from from the ceiling. Now, the tenant himself might not be aware of the situation. He might not regard it as dangerous, but our staff on checking may find that even the reinforcement bars are shown and repair is necessary. Sometimes we talk to tenants and we inspect the flat and we can provide more desirable flat for the tenant. So the home visit is the monitoring is once every 2 years, same as home visit. Was it too infrequent? That's done through home visits. We do care about our tenants. We have an EMAC. We have partnering programs. We also work with the social welfare department staff. Our district staff have a very close relations with them. So we're happy to do anything to cater for the needs of tenants. If it's outside the ambit of housing department, say, for example, if the elderly singleton or the elderly tenant might not know where his son has gone to work, and he seldom pays visits to the elderly tenant. So, and this is perhaps made known to our staff through their neighbors. Mr. Pascal.
I think you've put your finger on one of the key issues here. We've got a balance to achieve between invasive monitoring and supervision of our tenants and letting them have a certain degree of privacy. We think once every 2 years is a reasonable, because of course on top of that, our staff on the ground are seeing them on a regular basis. So generally we can pick up, and I can tell you, the neighbour will tell us if there's a problem. We get a lot of complaints from neighbours about, oh, he's not doing this or he's doing that. He's got mainlanders staying with him. So there's a whole system there in place.
Okay, thank you.
Kenneth, sorry. Chairman, a question for the department. How many staff members would be deployed to conduct home visits? And how long would those home visits last? Will the household be informed in advance, say 2 weeks before, that a home visit will be conducted? Mr. Liu. Thank you, Chairman. Now, on tenancy management, we have 1,200 staff members. Home visits, depending on circumstances, might last for some time. For example, sometimes on entry, the tenant might tell the officer to speed up because he's in a hurry to look after the grandchildren, and that might just take 3 minutes or so after we complete our work. Sometimes the tenant might become chatty and might talk for a longer time with our staff. But I think in general, a home visit can be completed in 10 minutes or so. We don't have an appointment system for home visits because if we had an appointment system, we won't be able to tackle the abuse of flats. Say, our frontline staff might pay a number of visits to a flat, and perhaps if our staff visits the flat twice in the evening and no one is there, then there is a possible chance of abuse of the flat. Then the case would be escalated to the central team for further follow-up action. Kenneth, if you have appointments, then some household members who have gone might return, and you might not detect the problems. So I understand for this system, it involves much manpower resources. But we have another system. For example, any change in the household membership should be reported to your staff, and water seepage problem, etc. If we adopt this system, if we have a good relationship with the tenants, then things could get right very easily. That's just my remark. Two short questions, Chairman. Table 28. some statistics on your households, page 77 in the English version. This table has to do with your households occupying 2 or even more flats. A total number stands at 2,405, and these households occupied more than 1 flat. Are these MS cases which require follow-up action? If I'd like to know something about it, should they be cramped in 1 flat instead? Mr. Liu, Table 28, in relation to households occupying more than 1 PRH flat. Before the 1st of October this year, before the new policy came into effect, apart from 1P household, there were 9 cases involving 1P household occupying 2 flats. Other than these 9 cases, other your cases are not prioritized your cases. And under the new policy implemented in October, more cases have been classified as prioritized cases. I'd like to say something more about these 9 cases with 1P household occupying 2 flats. 8 of the cases belong to the exempted category. The 1-person household might be an elderly singleton tenant or might be a disabled tenant. For prioritize your households, it's based on the per capita living space. For example, altogether they may occupy a living space of 400 square meters for a 2P household, and for the elderly, he might occupy a similar area, but he belongs to the exempted category. However, we also explain to the tenants and advise him to return the flat to us because it might be troublesome to maintain 2 flats and to pay rents for 2 flats. But for elderly tenants, it's more difficult. We need to strike a balance. Kenneth and Mr. Raymond Wong, do you have questions for us? Please submit them to us. Chairman, one general question for the department. I'd like to have a written response later regarding the way forward in Part 5. I'd like to thank the Commissioner for giving us a summary of the recommendations in a succinct manner, and that's in Part 5, way forward. I hope the department can give us a response in relation to these recommendations. And if possible, please also give us a timetable. If you think a timetable cannot be provided, please explain to us the reason. For example, some recommendations might need to go through HA's deliberation before it can be implemented. It's not very long. It's just 10 odd. So can we have a very brief written response starting from page 95 in the Chinese version? The audit make recommendations which already appear in earlier paragraphs, and we have already responded to these recommendations. As for timetable, we'll consider it, but definitely we'll follow up on the recommendations. Yes, but we do hope to have a timetable because, yes, we understand that some requires HA's endorsement, but in terms of policy, we'd like to know when the item will be discussed by HA because the policy affects some 720,000 households. So please give us a written response. Chairman, now our recommendations in different parts, some have to do with the operational issues or implementation issues, and these are easier for us to reach a decision. If the recommendations touch on policies, it will be more difficult. I understand that. It's related to housing panel as well. But we need to write a report, and we need to take an angle on how the points should be dealt with. Chairman, I don't think I have any other questions? But let's see if other members, Mr. Ng Long Sing, do you have any questions? Thank you, Kenneth, for leading the questioning part on the audit report number 61. And Secretary, thank you. And thank you for answering our questions together with your team and give us more in-depth understanding of this issue. And I think tenants can feel reassured living in public rental housing. And however, these are also public resources. We should consider how to expedite the or shorten the average waiting time. All right, thank you, everyone. I don't think you need to come back.